Hello, Browns fans, and welcome to the Gang of Three, which was briefly the Gang of Three. Now it's the Gang of Two again. Let me shift the view until we get back to the Gang of Three. How you doing, Pete?
I am good. How are you?
I am also good, particularly because the Cleveland Browns were winners on Sunday afternoon, late afternoon in Las Vegas as they took on the Raiders 24-10. Not really that close for much of the game thanks to the defense. But before we get into it, just a couple of bits of housekeeping here. First item is that little commercial that you saw that we entered with. That is the promotion for our big Cyber Monday special, which actually starts tomorrow and runs through Cyber Monday, where you get 75% off a VIP subscription, and that allows you to support the site, eventually get Paramount Plus, get into all our premium forums, all that sort of stuff, all for 75% off. If you are watching this on replay and it's Tuesday or later, use that little QR code in the upper left-hand corner to instantly go to our subscription page and get inside and hang out with Pete and me and the rest of the gang on our premium forums. Hope to see you there. All right. I believe that Lane has returned. Let me shift this around a little bit here. There's Lane. How you doing, Lane?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Is that an Ohio State jacket I see you wearing?
Usually is.
Yes, there it is. The camera just focused. Very good. I approve of that. All right, let's get into it, guys. If you are in Twitch or YouTube, please hit us up with questions and comments for the guys. We're going to talk about the game yesterday a little bit, but really want to hear from you and the questions that you have about the Cleveland Browns and what you want to talk about. And before we go on, just a thumbs up to our buddy Bernie Kosar, discharged from the hospital today after getting his liver transplant. So we're very, very happy to see that. And he is walking out of the hospital and hopefully headed to more great things. So, guys, the biggest topic, of course, beyond the win, even beyond Myles Garrett and his outstanding showing, is what we got from quarterback on Sunday. A much better performance than the week before. Pete, let's start with you. It obviously really struggled against the Baltimore Ravens, a historically bad performance, and came in and took the Browns to their first win under a new starter for, 30 years or however long it's been, ever since Eric Zaire in 1993. How much of that do you think was the fact that the Raiders are a discombobulated opponent? And how much is, can you credit to those first team reps? I bring this up because everybody was saying, get those first team reps. It's been a disaster, him not getting first team reps. How much do you think that played a role?
I don't know how much the reps played necessarily. I'm sure, I have no doubt he was better because he was more prepared and had the script and everything else. He looked better in terms of being able to navigate the pocket and having some answers. But the bottom line was he took advantage of 3 plays that he made into explosives, and that have been sitting there all season that we've been waiting for them to take advantage of. The Isaiah Bond play is something the Browns have been desperately trying to make happen basically all season. He does a great job of extending the play, rolling to his right as opposed to traveling backwards, and he makes a throw that I don't know if anyone else on this roster can make, which is one of the reasons he's here, one of the reasons people are excited about him, and obviously sets them up for an easy touchdown there. He makes the throw to Jerry Jeudy, and people can criticize Jerry Jeudy all they want. Nevertheless, it was a good play by Shedeur Sanders there. And then it wasn't a big deal play to make the throw to Dylan Sampson, but it was a big deal because we've seen plays set up. I go back 2 weeks to the New York Jets game. Malachi Corley is set up wide open for a throwback pass that would have been a touchdown. Malachi Corley could have walked into the end zone against the Jets, and Dylan Gabriel missed it. Shedeur Sanders didn't. And where we are on the margins, that's all it really takes right now is you hit the plays that are there and you capitalize. And he did, and he gets credit for it. And, 66 yards later, easy points that we've been waiting all season to get. So the reps absolutely help, but, the game wasn't some huge undertaking by Shedeur Sanders, but the 3 plays, really 4 plays, I include the little dump off to Fannin he did a nice job with, made all the difference in the world. I mean, those 3 plays I mentioned covered basically 75% of his passing yards, but nobody's going to argue with the results. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, certainly an improvement, and you come away with a win, and any indiscretions or issues are sort of waved away after you win the game. But Lane, what were your impressions of Shadur Sanders, and you know, did you expect to see the sort of improvement that we got from him against the Raiders?
Well, as soon as I realized that they weren't going to be blitzing all out and just putting them under intense pressure, I had a feeling that was going to be a shift that was going to be a positive for the Browns and a positive for Shadur Sanders. He did a great job of getting himself out of the pocket and making plays. Something they told him to do. Told him if you see it, go for it. Minimize mistakes. He's better getting himself out of the pocket than he is in the pocket right now. Even though he did do a nice job a few times of actually sliding up in the pocket instead of bailing in the pocket. With time, experience, reps, confidence, comfort, you're going to see him. He's that swaying that he has when he drops back and gets in the pocket, where he just has to be moving his feet all the time, and it's taking him out of the position that he should be in the pocket. If you ever notice, especially in this last game, he stayed more in the pocket, but he has a happy foot type of thing, and he's moving his feet a lot, and it causes him to sway, and at times it causes him to not be on and come through the ball like he could. It happened on a couple passes, a couple that sailed on him. I think that's something that him just being out there and getting that time is going to help alleviate that type of issue. But it was great to see that he was getting the ball out of his hands for the most part, wasn't taking sacks, wasn't retreating 15 yards back, and he made the big throws when the opportunity presented itself, and he often took what they gave him. But when that opportunity was there for him to get the ball downfield, he took that opportunity, which this offense is direly needed, and one of the reasons why he's back under center this coming week.
Were you impressed, Pete, by his composure in the pocket? I mean, Max Crosby is no slouch on the other side of the line, and I thought the line did a reasonably good job, but Shadur, I think, a couple of times stepped up in the pocket rather than retreating, which is sort of what we saw against the Ravens. Seems like he's taking, discrete steps forward.
Well, he fought against the demons in his head that have him wanting to turn his back to the defense, because he did that a couple times. Ultimately was able to have better success there. The offensive line had their best game of the year, and that's in large part because the Raiders suck. I mean, they just are an awful football team. And look, we're going to take that right now. When we looked at the schedule, we talked about this with Dylan Gabriel. We all talked about get him to the Miami Dolphins game and give him a soft landing. Shadur Sanders got the soft landing that provided the Las Vegas Raiders, and great. He got to play a team that does not rush the passer well, and he took full advantage. And Lane mentioned the blitzing thing. I cannot overstate how much of a big deal that play to Bond was. The Raiders defense completely changed how they played based on that. They blitzed him basically 4 times the entire game. And the second he hits that pass, they immediately started showing blitz and then immediately dropping off. That led to the interception. But he didn't have to do a bunch of stuff where he's racing against the clock and those things that he had issues with against the Ravens. So the Raiders completely abandoned what they were doing. Patrick Graham completely changed course on his game plan. And frankly, probably to the discredit of his defense, because they probably should have kept trying to heat him up. But when you gave him time to just sort of sit there and see the field, he's more than good enough to do that, and did some good things in there. But yeah, there were still a couple times where, like, Jack Conklin got called for holding for falling down, which I'm still not sure how that happened. But literally, Shadur Sanders turned his back to the entire field before sort of getting back right and then eventually making the right play and throwing the ball out of bounds. So he's still got a lot of work to do. And Lane sort of hit on it. He does some wonky things with his feet. And if you get into the all-22 and stuff, you can see that there are times where he can't make throws, that if he had a better process, he would be able to deliver the ball on time. There was one comeback to Jerry Jeudy he couldn't throw because he just didn't allow himself to be in that position to make the throw. So it's a great step forward for Shedeur Sanders in terms of where he needs to go. But there are a lot of steps for him to make. The bottom line is his arm talent is going to buy him opportunities to keep getting him on the field and seeing if he can't develop it, because he's genuinely special in that area.
You know, they're giving this. What you're seeing is all the work that's been put in with him since he's gotten to Cleveland. If you would have thrown Shedeur Sanders out there in week 2, this isn't the product you would have seen from him. Sure, you would have seen him maybe throw the ball downfield, but you wouldn't have seen the composed action of an offensive system that has had struggles the entire year, and they had their struggles yesterday. I mean, let's not fooling anybody because they won this game.
Yep, they were awful.
The offense didn't play that well. We can say the offensive line had one of their better games. Still can't run block worth of shit. You know, and you look at the opportunities. Sanders' feet gave some opportunities to get him out of the mud and make those plays downfield. But it brought an element of excitement and what this team could be going forward. And you look at the wide receivers, and the only thing we've heard for 10 weeks is their wide receivers suck. They gain no separation. They don't get open. And we come on this show every week and tell you receivers are getting in the clear. Or we don't have a quarterback that's throwing them open. What you saw yesterday was a direct result that, one, receivers do get open. You got to have a quarterback that's going to get the ball to them or attempt to get the ball to them, or receivers that actually have their head in the game, which is another issue that we'll talk about here when we get going. But the play at quarterback and just the threat and taking those opportunities, they've been there. They just haven't been capitalized on. On Sunday, they did exactly what they figured was going to happen. Shedeur Sanders was going to get opportunities, and he was going to take them, and he did.
And it just changed the entire dynamic of the field. When you have 8 guys in the box and suddenly they're running cover 3, they don't have the people to cover Jerry Jeudy the way they did, so he gets to run open. And that's
right.
We constantly are asked about play calling and all this other stuff, and we're sitting there going, these are there every week. We just need to block it effectively, and we need the quarterback to see it. And unfortunately for Dylan Gabriel, too often he had a bad habit of dropping his eyes and not seeing the field and not being in a position to throw the ball. It wasn't some miraculous change. It was taking a few opportunities. There are more there. If they continue to grow and build on this thing, there are going to be more plays. The best part about this is you watched a game where, if you are the coaching staff / organization, it was a game that was led by a rookie quarterback. You got a big time play. The biggest play of the season in terms of at least yardage was a rookie. The second biggest play of the season, at least in terms of yardage, was a rookie. You got all of these things going in the same direction, which is what you're desperately trying to prove to people, is that the choices they made in the offseason are ultimately the right ones. A game like yesterday gets you get to walk out with your chest puffed up because you're sitting there going, we're finally getting these guys to do what we've been trying to get them to do the entire year. Now, again, the Raiders make a big difference. It's going to be a little bit more difficult against the San Francisco 49ers. Robert Saleh is an excellent coordinator, even if we might be playing for him the way the injuries have bit that team, but he's still phenomenal at what he does. So it's going to be a real challenge in this next game.
Against San Francisco, there's going to have to be some creative pressure generated by the 49ers because their pass rush is very mediocre. And I believe that the way that you have an opportunity to get to this offense or get to Shedeur Sanders is by applying pressure. If they don't pressure him and he has the opportunity to sit back there and just see guys run, he can see guy throw ball. So that's not going to be an issue. San Francisco is going to have to generate pass rush, and they're a deficient pass rushing team. So it's going to make for an interesting matchup on Sunday.
Yeah, the Myles Garrett has 13 sacks in his past 4 games. The San Francisco 49ers have 12 sacks this season.
Yeah, if you're looking at the Browns' schedule moving forward, they are dealing with some teams that are among the bottom in the league in the DVOA standard, according to Mina Kimes. She put out a Blue Sky post earlier today about it. So you've got an opportunity there, with teams that are not necessarily very good against the run, to establish the run and really give, as you put it, Pete, that sort of that soft landing that Sanders needs to get some traction and get some good experience under his belt.
Plus the kookiness of the schedule. 4 of your last 6 are at home, so I mean they get a lot of benefits. I mean, we've talked endlessly about the first 6 and how ridiculous that situation was for the Browns. If they could have finished better, if they could have gotten those 2 wins that we've been complaining about all year against like the Bengals and the Vikings, this is that spot in the season where you sit there and go, they could be really moving. And the Jets is another one where you sit there and you go, you shake your hands and go, how do you lose to these teams? But this was where you had the opportunity to make up a ton of ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Comment from James McGee. He says it's not really a question, but I think the Browns are way closer to being a contender than most people think. Lane, do you agree with that? Do you think that these guys have a chance of being competitive in the near future?
I would say they're, for majority of time during a game, they're competitive now until their offense just ends up derailing them. I don't think they're that far off, but I don't think they're that close. They need to hit on an offseason of talent, familiarity, knowing what this quarterback situation is going to be, upgrade at wide receiver, offensive line. So there's, without the pieces parts, you only reach so high. You can only, get to a certain level. And you're seeing a bunch of rookies now that are, pushing them, a little catapult. And you have to continue to see that growth and development, which what this season was all about. Maybe if they have a very strong offseason, we could be talking about an entirely different type of situation with this team in 2026. Without that next influx of talent coming in here, it's slow steps. You get a significant movement in talent, you can take some major strides, because in the NFL, things change just so quick. And you can go from being a 5-11 team to a 10-7 team or 11-6 team in a hurry. You just have to have things go right for you. And when you see what this team was this year going into this season, really what you see is what you get. You thought the offense would have been better. And I think we're finding out and pinpointing the reasons why they have the issues that they have. And it's going to be an interesting stretch here now. They put Sanders under center with the rookies and everybody that's producing, to see if this is that base that they can start climbing upon to see change and improvement. Because right now we see a team that's like a roller coaster. So yesterday, while they weren't ultra productive, and statistically you look at what they did in offense and it wasn't all that impressive, they made things happen that hasn't happened all season. And that's something you can grow upon week by week. So it's going to be interesting when they get to the offseason.
Particularly the way the Browns are built, they are set up in a way where they can catapult up. Their defense is absolutely loaded. If they sign Ronnie Hickman, he's going to be a restricted free agent. However, whether they sign Devin Bush or JOK is miraculously going to be able to come back next year, that would mean the entire starting defense is back for next season. They just extended Alex Wright. That was a big part of that. I expect they're going to get a deal done with Cam Thomas, or at least I'm going to make sure they get a deal with Cam Thomas, because I'm going to whine about it until they do it. This is going to set them up to a position where they can do nothing but focus on offense. And that allows you the potential to make a huge jump, because the defense is so good. You have a few pieces on offense. But that being said, it's easier said than done, because you are literally going to be rebuilding an entire new offensive line. You have to get the quarterback position right. You need more weapons on offense. So you could easily see a situation where the Browns get it right and suddenly they're a 10, 11 win football team next year. You could also see a situation where they are the Minnesota Vikings and they are sitting there with a whole lot of talent on the field and are awful. But like, what I sort of look at and what I've looked at for this entire season is look at how the Browns are building their team versus the Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders drafted 12 players in the draft this past year. Basically, 2 of them play on a team that is devoid of talent. The Arizona Cardinals look like a complete mess in terms of their building. These are all the teams that are sort of at the bottom of the league. The Jets are completely, they have a million picks, but they have to replace so many things. The Browns, you can look at their record. It is what it is. But you can also sit there and go, well, if they do these things, you can easily see the path forward. And games like yesterday give you a sort of a glimpse of what this team could be. But it's an incredibly difficult undertaking to get right in a year. It could take 1 year, it could take 2 years, but the expectation is this team is going to get turned around very, very quickly, and the pressure's on. There's going to be nowhere to hide in terms of what they're trying to do. Everybody in the league knows they're coming in terms of they have to get their offense fixed.
Yeah, they absolutely do. What I want to do is I want to concentrate a lot on the questions which have been coming in. So if you are in YouTube or Twitch chat, please keep the questions coming. And the guys and I will do our best to deal with it. I do have to say, Pete, though, that the Raiders solved their issue because they fired Chip Kelly yesterday. And we here in Cleveland all know how effective at firing the offensive coordinator is when you have a massively deficient offensive line. So I'm sure that'll fix everything.
Look, his game plan in dealing with Myles Garrett was horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
But, they have a guy named Putnam trying to block guys up there. I think if he legally changes his name to anything else, he'd probably be a slightly better football player. There's just nothing that inspires any confidence in me that says Putnam is going to stop anybody on the offensive line. But they're completely screwed. Colton Miller is one of the best tackles in football. He's been out. They are so down on the offensive line, and it just goes. Look, we deal with this the entire year with the Browns and their tackle situation. The league has a huge problem. Offensive line play is in dire straits for a number of teams in the league, and the Raiders were a huge example why. Arguably the worst in the league. And the Browns, it's not even it's the worst offensive line the Browns have played this year. It will not be the last awful offensive line they play this year because Tennessee's coming in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Tennessee, I think, leads the league in giving up sacks, and Myles Garrett and the gang are going to be feasting in all likelihood. So let's get to more. Questions. This from TU mid distance. Let's say the Browns stick with Sanders and not take a QB in 2026. What wide receiver and what offensive lineman do you guys like?
Well,
I'll just pick guys from Ohio State. But Pete, what's your?
There's a long way to go before we get there. But the bottom line is there are 2 wide receivers I would kill to have on this team, and one of them is Mekhi Lemon from USC, and the other is Carnell Tate from Ohio State. They crush every threshold you want from that position. They're both incredible playmakers. Carnell Tate is a little bit more clear in terms of where you put him. You're going to put him outside. You're going to let him run down the field and do those things, which the Browns certainly could use. Mekhi Lemon's more based in the slot, but we're watching Jackson Smith and Jigner rewrite the record book for Seattle. He's already clinched the highest receiving yards in a season mark for that team on 11 games. Mekhi Lemon plays the same way. He is eerily similar to that style of wide receiver and just incredibly tough. He's not big, so he's not going to run super fast either. So people are going to get upset about the Browns don't draft super fast receivers. He's probably going to run the 4.5s, but just watch him play football. He absolutely dominates everybody he's playing against, and he fits in the same mold as sort of Quinshon Judkins and Harold Fannin in terms of a guy who just fights for every last inch on the football field. So he's easy to like from that standpoint. The only thing with Carnell Tate is obviously health. He's been phenomenal. He's broken out in every way Ohio State had hoped he would. And you're hoping, both as an Ohio State fan, if you're an Ohio State fan, which may or may not be the case on this show, but and also from an NFL standpoint, you're hoping this is precautionary. You're hoping they're saving him for real games as opposed to a real medical concern, because he's absolutely everything teams want at that position.
What about you, Lane?
He said it all. 2 wide receivers that I look at as far as offensive linemen.
It's so
haven't.
early. It's so hard.
I mean, all this is really, really early. I mean,
Yeah.
the scope is position players like the wide receiver and stuff like that. It's in your face more, and you can see a differentiation of talent. Whereas an offensive lineman, you have to really break them down. So I agree wholeheartedly with Pete on the wide receivers he mentioned. I think Carnell Tate is going to be an excellent pro. He checks every box, and wide receiver from USC is slippery, man. He's a talented individual who wins his matchups, and not just wins them. He can dominate you, and he's not imposing. It's all skill and ability. So it's going to be interesting when we get into really breaking down and talking about the draft prospects.
Yeah, for people who are going to say 5'11", 200 pounds and runs a 4.5, people are going to be who don't watch Big Ten football enough or whatever are going to sit here and go, "Why the hell are you drafting him?" Watch him. Yep. Just watch him play.
He returns kicks too, doesn't he?
Yes, he's a kick returner as well.
Yeah, so that could potentially help solve that, although Laverdane did very well this last weekend. Let's go to this question from Andrew. He asked, can any of the receivers grow this year? So we often get questions about Chad O'Shea. We'll start with you, Lane. What's your perspective on whether we're going to see improvement from the wide receivers?
Well, I guess you can learn how to be a professional, learn how to run routes, learn how to do all the right things to prepare. Maybe now, going into the home stretch of the season, we'll actually get to see some of these guys in legitimate action, having opportunities rather than running around pretty aimlessly. But when you look at the wide receiver group and you see the young guys who come out here and they pop some promise, then you look at the two guys who should be doing something and giving up on balls, stopping routes, running wrong routes. It makes you wonder, what's the true future of the wide receiver room in Cleveland? Right. Because if I was going to sit there and if I'm Andrew Berry, I'm like, okay, Jerry Jeudy has been a different guy since Jameis Winston left. The same moody guy that was in Denver with the problems, who would half-ass it and give you a half-hearted effort, and we've seen him the last couple of weeks even deal with the media. There's an issue there. Tillman, same situation. Back from injury, back on the field. He makes a couple catches. He gives up on balls. You can't do that. And that is an issue that they have to resolve, because when you have receivers, especially Tillman twice gave up on balls, especially one later in the game when Sanders just went deep. He just flat out stopped route. And it's an inexcusable thing at the professional level. You see more consistent effort out of young guys in college who may not have as much talent, but they have the desire. And when you're looking at Jeudy and Tillman right there, you have to wonder what's going on. And let's not use the excuse, well, they haven't practiced with Shedeur Sanders, so they don't know what the hell's going on. You would be amazed how much being in practice with a different quarterback in 1 week can make. And that doesn't change the effort. You still have to give the effort. And that's an issue.
Yeah, Pete, any comment on Jerry Jeudy? Question came in here from Carla. Do you want Jeudy or any of them mentoring a pick? That's an interesting question.
We got one at quarterback doing it right now.
I think with Jerry Jeudy, look,
yeah,
I think way too much is made of the particular play where he fumbled in terms of the effort piece. He's trying to make a move and try to break something open. And this is part of the problem the Browns have had, where they've been so starved for opportunities that you get guys trying to do too much. Last year, everybody loved when Jerry Jeudy was a guy with the ball in his hands creating. He was really good. He was one of the best elements of the game. So I'm not going to get mad at Jerry Jeudy for trying to make a play. Does he need to do a better job protecting the football and be a little more decisive there? Absolutely. But I'm not going to sit here and, like it was suggested to Kevin Stefanski, that he was like giving up on the play, which is insane. He had the ball in his hands. Of course, he's going to try to do something with it. But to the overall point, look, I'm frustrated with and for Jerry Jeudy. I'm frustrated for him because there are legitimately times where he's open, he's not getting the ball, and he should. And there are times where he's not doing what he's supposed to in terms of he's either dropped it or he's doing things that will frustrate you. Having said that, it's hard for me to hate him too much because, and Tillman as well, because both these guys will block their asses off for guys. They get out there and work. And the stuff with Chad O'Shea, if you talk about culture and this, and you'll hear this all the time when you watch college football games or color commentators really talk. You want to look at the culture of a football team. Watch how their wide receivers block. The Browns block on the perimeter. So I would like to believe that if we can get a little momentum going, that things will sort of pick up because so often these guys are used to being able to sort of stop a route. Tillman on the one, he sort of gives up where Shedeur Sanders threw a ball he had no business throwing, to be honest. Guy over the top, safety closing over, and Tillman sort of slowed down. Now, Tillman can't slow down there, but I think he's reading the room and saying, there's no way the ball's coming. Well, this is a situation where now you get in the film room and you have to be ready to go. And we saw this with Isaiah Bond earlier in the year with Joe Flacco as well. So there's a little different expectation there because in their slight defense, I'm not going to say you don't get to play with effort because you have to play with effort. When Dylan Gabriel was in there, the ball wasn't coming. So you could at least say there and go, well, they're slowing down because they know they're not getting the ball. Well, that has changed. So if this does not get fixed very quickly with Shedeur Sanders in there, you're going to have a real problem. The overall question, can guys show growth? Yeah, because if they get opportunities and succeed, that's going to be where the growth comes in. Isaiah Bond has been open the entire year on deep balls. They finally give him one, and he catches the football. Obviously this is a punt return, but Larvadain takes advantage of the opportunity and makes something happen and looks good there. Give these guys more chances. I mean, that's the thing that Harold Fannin is getting. Harold Fannin is capitalizing on the opportunities he gets. Dylan Sampson capitalized on an opportunity taking a 66-yard ball with this situation. So feed these guys, let them succeed or fail. At least at that point, they can sink or swim, but we're not living in this theoretical world where we're talking about, guys are open and they're not getting the ball. They're open, get them the ball. And if they can't do it, fine, we'll move on. But at least at that point, we get an honest referendum on this because I think the most realistic way to sort of deal with the Browns wide receiver room is to use a premium pick, top 2 rounds this year, and use a premium pick, top 2 rounds in 2027. Both. Not going, getting a premium receiver and then taking a mid-round guy. I'm enough with the mid-round guys. They're loaded with mid-round guys. So go big and do it in 2 years in a row. So you get an opportunity to let these guys acclimate, figure out where they fit, and then address it again. We transform that room if these guys can't step it up. But they're going to get, we got 6 more games to go. I want to see where these guys can go. We saw the glimpse with Bond. I'm hoping that that's not going to be the only time we get it because if he can do that, I've said all along, my upside case for Bond is wide receiver 4. And if wide receiver 4 does that once a game or once every other game, he's doing what we need him to do. It's the other guys that need to be more consistent. The Jerry Judys, the Cedric Tillmans, the insert receiver that they need to bring in need to carry this thing.
When you look at Isaiah Bond, we can all sit here and, look back at since he got here and, yeah, he's open. And he's open all the time. Sometimes he's not where he's supposed to be, or sometimes he may not know where he's going, but he's open. And that's where a quarterback such as Shedeur Sanders may be the optimal type of guy under center. When you have young guys like that who are maybe not exactly where they need to be or should be or can be, because Sanders, quite honestly, is the same. He's usually not exactly where he's supposed to be, not exactly doing what he's supposed to be doing. And he showed it throughout his collegiate career, and he showed it in his first start. He has something about him that finds guys down the field.
Right.
Let's see what happens when teams start bringing the heat and just lay the heat on him and really game plan for him and see how well he plays within the structure that makes those opportunities even more magnified, because then a defense has to really worry about everything of what an offense is, of what a quarterback is. And as far as the point is drafting wide receivers, you have to get top end talent in here at the wide receiver position, and you don't have much of a choice because what he comes down to is that Jerry Jeudy and Tillman are fantastic blocking, fantastic. Jerry Jeudy, when he's in this zone like we saw last year, he is a very, very good wide receiver, and he can beat guys. But you got to put the ball on him, and maybe it's a frustration of 10 weeks of not getting the ball on you, or not getting it where it's supposed to be, or not even having an attempt. But the thing is that regardless what those two guys do, you still need top end talent, like we said. You have to get a wide receiver early that is a true talent. And I don't want to see a small guy. I want a guy with some size, because they truly lack that. Because right now I'm not looking at the two main characters in the Browns wide receiver room and have just a boatload of confidence. I want a guy that we can get in here and bring along that can be a dynamic that's going to grow with this offense. And if he slides right in there with a Jeudy and a Tillman and a Bond and a Larvidan or a Thrash, that's fine. You got to keep building that room, because that's a room that's been deficient other than Andrew Berry trading for talent.
Save for the one ball we saw, well, really two balls Dylan Gabriel threw, the one deep ball that Tillman drew DPI, and the touchdown to Jerry Jeudy. Dylan Gabriel is not a guy who throws a lot of anticipation or throws balls that allow guys to adjust. Shedeur Sanders, this is one of the biggest tools in his toolbox, is his ability to throw guys to space. So this is going to give guys an opportunity. Isaiah Bond was a great example. He just threw to an area of the field. And Isaiah Bond adjusted and made the play on the ball. If we see guys who are good at tracking the ball down the field, they're going to be better with Shedeur Sanders potentially, and really get to show another element of their ability to make plays on the field. Clearly, Shedeur Sanders is willing to throw guys and give them opportunities. So, like, if you're not a receiver who wants the ball, this is not going to be good for you. So, I mean, like, they're going to be there. This is one of the benefits you get with Sanders. If he can avoid doing the dumb stuff, he's going to give these guys every opportunity to make plays, and you could really see some great development from these guys and show a side that we haven't seen. Dylan Gabriel is much more right on the spot, on schedule, right in a particular place. Shedeur Sanders is going to throw guys into they've got to figure it out sort of space.
Right. I mean, you come right down to it. He's now played a game and a half? A game? One start. 11 to 20, over 200 yards, touchdown, pick. There was an energy. There was a change in the feel of the offense, knowing that the opportunity or capability or possibility of getting the ball downfield could happen. And that was brought by number 12. You didn't have that sense or that feel, any of that before this. You had Joe Flacco, who could get the ball down the field. Then you had Dylan Gabriel, which I believe was a disappointment for them to this point. And then Shedeur Sanders, who they scaled down the offense a little bit and simplified some things and fine-tuned it to what he can do, what he does, what he likes, which is how you should prepare a quarterback. And that's where all these weeks and all this work and all this time helped lead him to that performance on Sunday. A win is a win. Regardless how you got there, a win is a win. And your quarterback did things that we haven't seen a quarterback in Cleveland do this year. So now you got promise and hope. Now you got to see if this is something that they build upon or the wheels come off of it and take that 2 steps back. Me? I think it's going to be an interesting game Sunday. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to come out there and he's going to be more confident than he was last week. And he's probably going to take a little bit more chances. And he may get in a little bit of trouble. But they're going to be swinging. They have enough confidence to let him throw the ball. And believe me, he's going to throw the rock.
Yeah, it'll be a lot more fun to watch. That's for sure. Pete, let's talk about that 66-yard completion to Dylan Sampson. Well, it wasn't really a 66-yard completion. It was about a 6-yard completion. And Dylan Sampson took it the rest of the way. I noticed early when Sampson came in, there was very little fear that the Browns were going to throw the football. One of the times Sampson was in the backfield, I saw like 9 guys, right around the line of scrimmage between the tackles, practically crowding that. And then they threw this little, pass to the side to Sampson, and he ran it through. I guess the question is, from my perspective, how did that work? Right? With so many guys crowding the line of scrimmage when Sampson is in there because they don't think they're going to pass, all of a sudden he's able to run through those guys and get some space.
Well, part of it is, again, it's the willingness to go down the field and that Isaiah Bond play. It changes the whole dynamic. We've watched Dylan Gabriel play quarterback for this team, and everybody's lined up like they're defending the red zone. When you have to suddenly be honest to the whole field and think about it, it pushes guys back, or it changes the dynamic. So we've seen Dylan Sampson catch a whole bunch of balls and then get no space to work with. All of a sudden, because the Raiders had to at least be honest to the situation, there's some space. And the Browns did a really nice job designing this play to get blocks out there. Guys are more than willing to get out there and block. You had David Njoku, you had Cedric Tillman, you had all these guys out there set up the block and do a good job. And then for Sampson's part, I've said all along that if the more space this guy gets, the better he's going to be. So if the Browns can get a way to sort of cause defenses to cover more of the field, this guy's going to be really impressive. And the thing with Sampson, both in this catch and then the run he ran for 26 yards, was his speed in the cut. He saw it. He put his foot in the ground and barely a hesitation, changed direction, and his burst is incredible. I mean, this is a guy with low 4.4 speed in the open field, and it looked effortless in just how fast he can go. This is the reason you drafted him. This is why I love the pick, and I love the interplay with him and Quinshon Judkins. But the problem is just right now, they just aren't consistent enough in giving him enough room to operate, and he doesn't have a whole lot of size. And when you can sort of box him in, he's only got so many options. So this just came down to they had a quarterback in there that was willing to go down the field and cause the Raiders to at least think about it. And then in this case, they just set it up real well. And again, I mentioned this earlier, but the Malachi Corley thing, not the same play, but similar setup where you're trying to get the defense to believe you're doing one thing and doing another. In this case, they just sort of eased these guys out to set up the wall on what amounted to be a screen and got them going. I mean, that's the same element of, we see the Browns get beat on this weekly, where the Browns will send a pressure 3 weeks in a row, and suddenly there's just a little ball of the running back. And obviously against the Jets, it went for a touchdown, but we've seen big plays each of the past 2 weeks where they just dump the ball of the running back and suddenly there's nobody out there to account for it.
All right, let's get to some more of these questions that we have piled up here. Let's stay on the subject of Shedeur Sanders with this question from Matt Macklin Lane. He asked, what would Sanders need to do to convince the Browns not to draft a quarterback in the first round? The Browns may, if they win a few games, may put themselves in a position where that's very difficult to do, begin with. But what can Sanders do to convince them to invest their resources elsewhere?
You look at one performance and he did okay. You need a lot from your quarterback position. And, not only in just, projecting or how you evaluate. You spent half the season now growing and developing Shedeur Sanders, and there was a reason why you drafted him. There's a reason why you kept him. There's a reason why you give him the extra work. Because this guy is uncanny accurate. And if you can fix just a couple quirks that he has in his game, and you can correct those, then you start to see what this guy can be the vast majority of the time instead of the occasional thing. I need to see a lot more before I would even consider not looking at the quarterback position early. It's one game in. and
Yeah.
you need to see a lot more. It's not a simple thing to sit here and just talk about and evaluate. You need to see that leadership grow. You need to see his recognition, speed of processing. Those quirky things he does eliminated. You have to see just a bucket of things that you just want to see gradual improvement on. And if you continue to see that until the end of the year, if he's the starter and he maintains and keeps playing and keeps progressing and does well, then maybe if he does well enough, you have a question. I'm not sure that is how it's going to play out. It's going to depend a lot on where they're going to draft, too. Because if they win a few more games, they're not going to be positioned to draft one of the maybe 2 quarterbacks that I would even consider up there. So I think they may play themselves out of that pick to start with. And it's going to be interesting to see what Shedeur Sanders does on the field that helps them not try to fill that spot with such a high pick.
Relative to the draft, it's winning. That's it. That's the only way you're going to get them not to take a first-round pick is if they can't. But the Browns are not going to be fooled into getting by at the quarterback position. Well, otherwise, Baker Mayfield's still here. I mean, that was a big reason. There were other reasons that went into that, but the bottom line was they were of the opinion that they needed to get a top 10 quarterback, and they didn't believe they had one. So Shedeur Sanders eking by, and maybe he goes off. Maybe he's going to throw through for 350 and 4 touchdowns for each of the next 6 games, and then problem solved. I'm here for it. But realistically, if he plays them out of position, then we're talking about the veteran market. Hell, I would if the Browns could fix the other issues, I would take Geno Smith on this team in a heartbeat. I would love to have Geno Smith on this football team based on the way that guy plays. But it's an uphill battle for Shedeur Sanders, and it's not. I don't look at him as a 1-year project. I consistently said 2. And even if the Browns draft a quarterback or sign a quarterback or whatever at quarterback, they're going to bring in more guys. Shedeur Sanders will then have his opportunity to say, no, I'm the starter. I'm going to win the damn job in the offseason and in the summer and all that stuff. And, there will be people who are going to continue to grift out this nonsense. The Browns don't want this guy to succeed, and they don't want to have great quarterback play because, yes, the Browns desperately don't want to have great quarterback play. That's the move. If he can do it, they're going to take it. But it would be an accomplishment and certainly increase the chances of Shedeur getting a shot at this thing legitimately if they play themselves out of the top picks, force them into a situation where now they have to take a wide receiver and a bunch of offensive linemen. That's where it starts. But beyond that, it's going to take so much work and growth. And here's the thing. I think Shedeur Sanders has an opportunity to get a whole lot better in these 6 games. But I think the most improvement he's going to make is this next offseason. He's going to get a real chance to not, the draft process is such a weird animal in terms of how these guys are poked and prodded and what they're working on. But he's now on a team that is going to say, here's what we're doing on offense. Here's what you specifically need to try to work on and improve over the course of the season. And the kid's going to work. Is he going to make the necessary improvements? To be determined, but at least he's going to have a clear direction on where they want him to go, as opposed to before where it was, I don't know which of the 32 teams I'm going to be on and what they really want me to do. He'll have a clear direction.
He's going to make the effort, and that's the only thing that we can sit here and say is that he is going to work, just like he's worked since he got here. And it's going to depend on how the situation plays out. I mean, you got 6 games that he can come in here and just continue to show growth and improvement, and they can't ask for anything more from him, because the biggest part of growth and development for a quarterback, a rookie, is after that first season going into the second season. That is when that quarterback really grasps what the hell has been in his face trying to figure out this whole time. People run around and they talk about conspiracies, or the Browns did this, the Browns screwed him here. I'm one of the people that think that the Browns actually handled him right. I thought the slow play was the right thing, knowing what we knew, knowing what we saw, and I think that benefited him and this team yesterday, and it should benefit them as they go along. It's not everything is black and white. Sometimes there's a gray area. This young man wants to play. He wants to achieve. He wants to win. He wants to be legendary. And he's going to do anything he can to do that. Let him play. And let's see what we got, because you got an off season that you can do something different. If you don't like him, you're not satisfied, you don't think he has a talent, you have opportunities ahead of you. But for 6 games now, coach this kid up, plan for him, scheme for him, and see what he can do. See if he continues those growth steps that you've already got put in place with him. Because I think there's an opportunity here that he's not going to light this thing up in the end of the year. That's not what this is about. It's about showing his growth and development. And as long as we see that, there's a chance.
I'll go a step further. I think Kevin Stefanski might be the best thing that's ever happened to Shedeur Sanders in terms of his professional development, because there are dozens of coaches in this league who would look at the circus that's around him, and whether of his making or not, and basically say, screw this, get out. Because the juice isn't necessarily worth the squeeze for a lot of these coaches. And they're guys, you're a third string quarterback, and you're the guy taking interviews and doing all this stuff. They are lucky that Kevin Stefanski is confident enough in his own skin that he doesn't let that stuff bother him, because a lot of coaches wouldn't. And he did take the time. Look, we go back to the preseason game where Kevin Stefanski took him out to protect him from himself. He's done nothing but care for this kid. And he also simultaneously doesn't stifle Shedeur Sanders for being exactly who he is. He just sort of allows it to work itself out. He doesn't allow it to be a distraction for the locker room. He allows this kid to be exactly who he is, and he coaches him. This group coaches him. And even if you don't want to, if you want to believe that the Browns handled this entirely wrong and they've been screwing him over the entire time, fine. Give Shedeur all the credit for working his ass off this whole time and getting better over the course of the season. I don't care. And the thing is, Kevin Stefanski doesn't care either. He's not worried about the credit. He's trying to do right by the kid because he understands that if he gets it right and Shedeur can deliver the way he could with the amount of talent he has, that's all that's going to matter. If they can get a 5th-round pick to be a franchise quarterback, it's going to allow them to use all their resources and everything else on this roster. And suddenly everybody's going to be very worried about the Cleveland Browns, that they have a great defense. Holy crap, they got the quarterbacks off, and 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and God only knows all this other stuff and ability to spend. And all they have to do is fix up the rest of the offense. Like it's insane. For people who want to use Kevin Stefanski as a punching bag and all this, fine. He's doing right by Sanders all the way on this thing. And you know who's not piping up? Anyone from Sanders' camp. His dad can openly complain, though I don't know if he really wants to, given the fact Colorado's 3-8. But nevertheless, you're not hearing a word from the people who could come out and say Kevin Stefanski's screwing him. It's all this made-up grifting crap. Sure, Sanders isn't complaining. All he's saying is, I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm trying to win. The Browns had a game plan that allowed him to be himself. Nobody's going to sit here and come in here and tell me that Shedeur Sanders didn't look like Shedeur Sanders in the Cleveland Brown offense. They just catered to his strengths and tried to mask his weaknesses as much as possible, and that's going to continue as they move along. Now, defensive coordinators are going to get tape. They're going to get a better handle on what they think they can attack. But either way, like, you're getting Shedeur Sanders in the NFL, and I think this is the right situation for him. And if the Browns were to fire Kevin Stefanski, and I don't think it's going to happen, if they were to do it, there's a real possibility they hire a coach who says, screw this, I'm not dealing with this at all, and gets him out immediately.
I think we can simply say that if the Browns or Kevin Stefanski didn't have a true interest and desire to help this young man and bring him along and develop him, he would not spend the extraordinary amount of time that he does on a 5th-round draft pick. And that's relatively simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I'm not sure the OBR knows how the media is supposed to work. We're supposed to want to fire everybody or be delirious when things happen that are good, or create conspiracy theories and all that sort of stuff. We're just
that sells,
folks. Yeah,
that's the bullshit that sells. If you look at what media does, in this town with the quarterback situation. It's been a roller coaster of bullshit since training camp, and it hasn't changed. It goes on and on and on. Why Shedeur Sanders should start? Why Shedeur shouldn't start? The next person, the same person says, this is why I said he should start. Shut up, man. Report on the team. Report on the actions. Your personal bullshit, unknowledgeable bullshit is your bullshit. Report on what it is. This young man deserved an opportunity. He worked hard for it. He got it. He played reasonably well for his first start. So you got 6 more weeks. Let's see what he does. And we can have 17 more commentary pieces written about how everybody backflipped away from what they always said about Shedeur Sanders. Let this kid play, man.
All right. Well, one of the things that Shedeur has done is he is talking a lot to Deshaun Watson. And Jeffrey Champion wants to know what our thoughts are on Deshaun Watson being a mentor to Shedeur Sanders. Now, regardless of what you think of Watson on a personal level, Pete, he does have some NFL experience, and I would see some potential value in him talking to Shedeur, and Shedeur seems to listen to him.
I mean, the bottom line is if it works for Shedeur Sanders, great. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say he shouldn't talk to Deshaun Watson because the Browns gave him $230 million and, he's not doing what we wanted him to do, so he should do nothing. If it's of value to Shedeur, and it clearly seems to be, great. We're stuck with Deshaun for another year, and so give him something to do because it's never going to be playing on the football field again. So if this is that thing, great. He does have experience. He's played at a high level. He's seen a lot of stuff over the course of his career. If he can give him some extra sort of something, that's fine. There are no shortage of people trying to coach this kid up. So if this is somebody he has a rapport with that's going to help him get where he needs to be, great. I'm all for it.
While this can get under my skin a little bit for everything that this organization and team has gone through since and because of that trade, Deshaun Watson has been an entirely different person within that building this last year. And while that may not equate too much of number 4 finding it on the playing field, he's taken a role in talking and working with the young guys. And Deshaun Watson, once upon a time, could really play. So we can call it what it is. It's Deshaun Watson maybe has found his Cleveland calling after all this time, that maybe he now realizes that it's just not a him thing, and he has to be all in, especially for young guys who may be looking up to him because he's been there and done that in this league.
Right. Well, I tell you what, we've been on the air for about an hour, and we've been talking about the offense. We've been talking about Shedeur. We got to at least note what is happening with the defense. We've got a related question that I'll get to here in a second. But 18 sacks on the season from Myles Garrett. He's on pace to destroy the NFL record at this point. And, obviously there's strength across that defensive line, which is helping Garrett this year. They extended Alex Wright. What do you think of the Alex Wright extension? Is that, guarantee future success for this defensive line, or sort of a holding pattern so they don't have to go out and get, rent a defensive end next year?
I mean, it's not that expensive. I know a lot of people are going to get hung up on the idea of 3 years, $33 million. I'm sure it's going to end up being a 2-year contract functionally. But the way the cap is escalating, it's not that much money. I think more notable. I mean, look, on Alex Wright's part, he's an excellent run defender, and he's just really athletic. I mean, you watch the kid just run. I mean, just get up and run and play in space. He's remarkable. You're hoping that at, basically 25 years old, that he's going to still grow as a pass rusher because he's just not distinguished himself in that capacity. He has 3 sacks. They're largely hustle sacks, which I will take. I'm not going to sit here and argue with it. But in terms of pass rush win rate and the advanced metrics, Mason Graham has a better pass rush win rate than Alex Wright does right now. And Mason Graham's playing really good football. But, for a defensive end, you want him to do those things. But he's enormous. He's a good base end. You extend the life of this defensive line. This is why with the Cam Thomas thing, I think that's the other half of that equation, because Cam Thomas is a really proficient pass rusher for being a fourth end that sort of balances that thing out. I think he can be signed for a very reasonable deal. He fits in beautifully with Cleveland and all those things. But the larger issue is it just takes that stuff off the table. The other part that's really interesting is just that Andrew Berry's being allowed to do it in November, when at the time the team was 2-8. You're spending money. You're now spending money that if the team is planning on making major changes, it would affect the new people who would be operating. So it doesn't necessarily guarantee anything. Jimmy Haslam could come in and decide you're all out of here. But at least for right now, I don't think Jimmy Haslam came down and said, you're re-signing Alex Wright or this is it. Like, I don't think he's that type of player, but it's at least notable from that standpoint. But he just fits what Jim Schwartz wants. He's willing to attack. He's willing to get off the ball and do these other things. And that's one of the things that struck me about this game. You just paid a guy $21 million guaranteed. He wasn't even on the field as the Browns got 10 sacks in this game. That's how loaded they are. This is what Jim Schwartz has desperately wanted. He's the squeakiest wheel in Cleveland and has gotten all kinds of oil to fix this thing in terms of Mike Hall, Mason Graham, getting these, role players like Cam Thomas and Aiden Huntington and getting Lee Collins. And they are just continuously loaded. And Myles Garrett's career, this is a sort of a recognition of what Myles Garrett has been doing for years. It's just finally they now have the guys that are really showcasing in terms of the stats that people want in terms of the sacks. And yes, he's got a great shot of setting the single season record. That's not the record people should be paying attention to. This young man, who's not even 30, has 120 career sacks. He can get, if he wants to, Bruce Smith is out there for him. A record you would have thought would have stood the test of time at 200 sacks over the course of the career. Myles Garrett might get it by mid-30s at the rate he's going because he's just that damn good.
All right. Well, with Garrett getting so much national attention, the Browns, anybody who watched that game, just crushing the Raiders offense last weekend. Some might think that Jim Schwartz his phone might start ringing. And TU Mid-Distance wants to know, what's the likelihood of Jim Schwartz leaving? Lane, do you have a take on that?
People are going to look at him and see what he did in Detroit, and people are going to look and see how there's this youth movement across the head coaching fraternity in the NFL outside of Las Vegas. So just because of what they're doing, he deserves a look. I don't necessarily think or believe it's going to happen, but I think that he should be recognized for his accomplishments of what they do. And I wouldn't be surprised if he talks to somebody, but I don't anticipate him leaving this role.
Not unless it's in a box. The bottom line, look, the Browns made several moves that basically ensure Jim Schwartz can't leave. Functionally, he can, but they took Mike Hall Jr. in the second round. They took Mason Graham 5th overall. They took Carson Schwarzenegger at the top of the second round because this guy said, I need these guys to make this work. And let's say a team calls and offers him a head coaching job, which won't happen. He's going to go there and he's going to not have these players. Yep. So he has an opportunity to coach Myles Garrett and watch him break the all-time sack record on a team that is just absolutely stupidly loaded with talent on defense, or he can go somewhere else and not have those things. And look, I think Jim Schwartz is a good coordinator. I do not think he's one of the best in the league, but he's got so much talent that it's going to allow him to be good. Like, I look at a guy like what Denver's doing with Vance Joseph, also stupidly talented, but I think he's sort of edging Jim Schwartz out in terms of just the X's and O's right now. So, Jim Schwartz is doing a really good job. I'm not going to sit here and say Jim Schwartz is a bad guy. I think investing in Jim Schwartz has paid off handsomely in terms of the Browns making these investments. Obviously, taking a defensive tackle 5th overall, you have high expectations. They're getting those. You expect a lot from a linebacker taken 33rd overall. You're getting more than that out of this. So, investing with Jim Schwartz, you generally win. but he's gotten a significant amount of investment. Meanwhile, Kevin Stefanski is getting very, very, very little, if anything, on offense, and people are mad at him for it.
Yeah.
Well, those people that are mad at him, where does that come from? Because it's not the people that he works in the building with. So, you can have national media, local media, fans being all pissed off and blame Kevin Stefanski for everything going wrong and why Kyrie Irving thinks the world's flat, and all kind of crazy shit like that. What it comes down to is that they did all the investing on the defensive side of the ball. Next year, there's going to be significant investment in the offensive side of the ball. This wasn't something that they just concocted 2 weeks ago and said, "Oh, we got to do this." No, they had a plan, and they're working through their plan, and that's what's coming. You're not going to see anything else. And the only way you're going to see any kind of change at head coach is if the wheels just come off the wagon or Kevin Stefanski just says, "I'm done with it." Because other than that, that's not in the cards right now.
But honestly, if you're looking at defensive head coaches, Vance Joseph is going to be the star. He is the guy the teams want. He absolutely crushing it in Denver.
Oh, they're playing exceptionally well. One problem Jim Schwartz has is that he is inherently stubborn and inherently goes to the last inch in belief of his players and pushing them to that degree, and it gets him in trouble with the defense at times and the overall philosophy because he doesn't waver until there's absolutely no choice, and that's what sometimes gets him in trouble.
Yeah. Well, I think Jim Schwartz would be wise to stick around Cleveland with all that talent and continue to look brilliant. Myles Garrett is like, for Jim Schwartz, is like Tom Brady was for Bill Belichick, makes him look very, very smart, among other things. But we've been on the air for a little bit more than an hour. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Thanks if you were in the audience for all the great questions from the chat room. We couldn't get to all of them. It's a gang of three, so we do a lot of talking between ourselves. But thank you for all the questions. They were all great. And we will be back again next Monday after Thanksgiving for another edition of Gang of Three. We'll see you then.